Okay, welcome to Making Your Offer Stand Out. So we're going to be talking about different things that will make your offer maybe stand out more than others if you're competing. So Eric, when I was thinking about this, it's hard to it depends on what kind of offer we're trying to make. Are we competing? Do we have multiple offer situation and we want to win the house? Or has this house maybe been sitting for a little bit and we want the best deal?
Yeah. Every scenario is kind of different, and every house and the people in it, the sellers, the other side of the the transaction. If it's another agent, every scenario is a little different, and everybody has their own spin on the way they like to do things, right? So yeah, those are key things, and we'll kind of touch into some of those today. I didn't know. There's a lot of different scenarios we can factor into that. So
yeah, let's just start off maybe by talking about things that are negotiable. Everybody thinks price. We can just negotiate on price, but there's a lot more to an offer. But let's start with price.
Okay.
When you're working with a buyer, how do you advise them on what price to offer?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that. You've looked at a lot of different homes probably with the buyer, so they kind of have a price point and a price parameter that they're comfortable with and willing to go up to for each property or for the home that they want to buy. So we fit in the window of, okay, are we looking in the right price point? Obviously we are. So within that price window, we can also, compare this home that they're making an offer on against the four or five or 10 others that they've looked at potentially, and kind of put a number in there. But a lot of times initially they'll ask me my opinion, and I'll give them hey, in today's market there's some concessions happening. I wouldn't go below 7%, 6 to 7% below the list price unless the home's been sitting on the market a while, or unless there's obvious reasons why you'd want to, whether it's condition, location, a lot of factors that way. So but try to keep it within that 6% window at least, I think.
Yeah, you don't want to offend sellers right off the bat,
right?
So then they're less willing to work with you.
Right.
And then we've all worked with buyers that want to get this stellar deal, and they're offering way under the list price. At that point, I usually just try to give them even some comparables they can look at on paper. These have recently sold, and this is what they sold for. And so realistically,
I would say that's a key factor, a key point. You're using comparables of recently sold properties that fit within that price point. I didn't touch on that, but I think that's number one on the list as far as how to help them make the right offer price wise.
Yeah.
Some other things that you can negotiate. Obviously, earnest money's one of those things. I wouldn't say it's negotiable, but it's one of those things you pick, right?
Yeah.
It can be anywhere from 2 to 3% of the purchase price to probably 1% is the very lowest. I have a personal feeling regarding that, but that's something that I usually share with the client when I'm sitting with them, because I don't want to overexpose them, meaning put too much earnest money down on a property, because at the end of the day there is always that caveat to where they could potentially lose it, but there are things in place for that.
Just in case we have some buyers on here that don't understand what earnest money is, let's explain real quick what earnest money is.
So it's like it's a good faith deposit, I would say, is the best way of putting it. It's putting our best foot forward. It's saying, yes, we want to buy your home, and so in order for us to do that, we need to go get financing and do all the things, but we're going to make our offer and put a deposit down on the home to let you know that we're serious. That's kind of the way I explain it. Do you have another way?
Yeah, no, that's good. Just maybe the only other term I would use is and then it's a credit to them at closing. So it's not extra on top of the purchase price. It's a deposit and then a credit at closing for them.
Right.
So,
Yep.
Some other things that are negotiable would be concessions or seller credits. So there's two ways to negotiate the purchase price. You can offer a lower purchase price, or you can ask for that amount of money. So let's say you're going to offer $10,000 lower than the list price, or you could ask maybe $10,000 towards closing costs or carpet or
Appliances.
or a rate buy down for a lower interest rate. So
Right.
that's another way of negotiating.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things concession wise. I mean, if you want to get super creative, and one of those things in concessions, I would say, is, you know, depending on each person's scenario, we can craft the offer that tailors to their scenario, that's going to put the best foot forward towards that seller. That's always kind of like why we're doing this. We want consumers, buyers, potential buyers to reach out to agents, you know, reach out to us. We'd love to work with them. We'd love to help them. And we can share more of this knowledge with them along the way to help them put that best foot forward and make that best offer.
Yeah, and what's going to benefit them in the long run, you
Right.
know. So offering someone $10,000 under the list price or asking for $10,000 in concessions is the same net
To the seller.
to the seller. Yeah.
Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit. So sometimes when you're trying to put your best foot forward and look like that you're going to be a buyer that's easy to work with, it's kind of important to understand what the seller maybe would like to see happen, not necessarily on purchase price, but other things, right?
Yeah. So some of those things could be like closing date. Do they have a preferred time? Do they need to stay? Do they want a preferred closing date? And you're flexible as a buyer. The other thing is, do they have a preferred title company? Because title companies, there are a few little minor differences between each title company, but overall they're very similar in the pricing and what they offer. So if it's
never had a buyer that really cares,
right,
but I have had sellers that care. So that's a good one.
another thing that could be negotiable is, or what the sellers may want is, they want to leave a bunch of things that they don't want to take with them. So they want to leave the trampoline, they want to leave a swing set, they want to leave some furniture in the home that they don't plan to take or they can't fit in their new home, and it's just easier for them to leave it. So if you can be flexible as a buyer and be like, yeah, well, anything you want to leave, we'll keep, we'll deal with it, we'll take care of it. Just making it as easy as possible sometimes for the seller helps your offer stand out a little bit, or at least, like you said, it portrays that we're going to be easy to work with.
Yeah. Because, especially if you have a contingent offer, and, no sellers want to see a contingent offer. We're seeing more and more of them right now.
Yeah.
But the more that you can say, okay, I do have this contingent offer, which means, I have a house that I have to sell in order to buy this one, and it's not under contract yet. I'm going to do these things for you so that I think it's important for buyers and sellers both to know that you have to have equal skin in the game.
Yeah.
So even though you want the best deal on the house and you have a home to sell in order to buy this one, there's got to be equal skin in the game for that seller to take that offer. And I think that's important.
Yeah, creating a win-win, like equal skin in the game. We want to create the win-wins, because if one party feels overly like they're giving and they're doing more, then at the end of the day, or not even at the end of the day, but throughout the transaction, it can cause hiccups or little bumps in the road that may not need to be there, obviously.
Well, one of the RIFs, and another thing that we can negotiate on that we didn't talk about yet, is inspection.
Yeah, that's huge. There is a ton of different scenarios with inspections. So, and a lot of people say, well, the lender requires us to get an inspection, or I have to have an inspection. We recommend everyone get an inspection, but the truth of the matter is, if you're savvy, if you're comfortable, if you know what it is you're buying. You're not required by law or by any scenario to have an inspection. And in fact, you can do those inspections as a buyer yourself instead of hiring a third party. Now, do we I mean, again, it's one of those things where I would say we're always going to recommend you have an inspection, but at the end of the day, it's your home and you're the one purchasing it. If you feel comfortable, then just as long as you know that if plumbing, something happens the next day after you move in and you didn't have the inspection, you know, that's on you.
There's some things you can negotiate up front on inspection as far as like inspection time period. You know, you're not going to take up 2 weeks to do the inspection.
Right.
You're going to do it in a less amount of time.
Yeah.
You can even, you know, let them know you're not going to ask for thousands and thousands of dollars in inspection items.
Put some stop gaps in there where you're like, okay, we are going to do an inspection, but we're going to do it in 3 days or 5 days, no later than 5 days, and we're not going to ask for anything above $1,500. And if the repairs are less than $1,500, then we'll take care of them ourselves. If they're above that, then we'll ask the seller to participate, type of things. Those are things you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, and we're going to dive more into inspection in the next few weeks. But I think that we kind of covered everything. I think when we're presenting the offer, that's the last thing that I wanted to kind of go over, like things that they can do when we send the offer off as agents. What do we like to send to make that offer look as beautiful as it can on paper?
So, you know, crafted offer with all your T's dotted, I's crossed is important. Making sure that all blanks are filled in so that there's no question and no you know, ambiguity. Yeah. And as well on top of that is that cover letter. A lot of agents, you know, don't do it, but putting it all short, concise on a cover letter, so the main bullet points are.
You're not talking about a love letter.
No, just a cover letter of here's the purchase price, here's the earnest money, here's the lender, here's the close date, here's some of we're asking for, you know, just a few of the bullet points of the main offer. Summary.
Gotcha.
There you go. Yeah, I wasn't talking about love letters, but that brings up a great point. Do you have a thought on love letters?
I personally don't love them because a lot of the times, so as agents, you know, there's certain laws that we have to abide by, and we can't discriminate against, you know, familia status, things like that. So in a love letter, almost everyone's like, oh, I can't wait for my kids to play in the backyard, or, you know, at Christmas time, how beautiful your home will look. Well, you just basically talked about familia status and religion in the letter, and we're not supposed to give that letter. And if we receive that letter, we're not supposed to hand it off. So it just kind of puts you at a disadvantage. The only things that you could put in a love letter is stuff that you really, really like about the home. So typically, I don't encourage them.
Yeah, I would definitely say, you know, stay away from them, only because of those types of things. We don't want to put ourselves at a disadvantage right out of the gate, because you never know who the person on the other side of the transaction is that you're dealing with. And so for us to assume certain things or put certain things into a love letter, which you would think would possibly help you in a scenario, can set you back quite a bit as well. So just some things to keep in mind. But I'm in agreement with you, Erica, that if we can, just avoid the love letters for sure.
Yeah. So when we're handing off that offer, we want to make sure that the offer is written beautifully. We want to put that cover letter with the bullet points. And then one very important thing is that pre-approval letter that we talked about with our mortgage lender, that we will get a letter from the lender and send that off all together. And then hopefully we usually hear back within 24 hours, or, you know, sometimes a little longer if the seller needs it, but we try to, like, in 24 hours get you an answer back. So that is how we make your offer stand out.